Member Hahn? Okay. Member Combs?
Thank you very much. First, I want to thank, Tracy Brown, and I also want to thank you, Dr. Lesperance, for all your hard work. You've come in here, I don't even know, I think you've been in this position less than a year, and I have seen some really remarkable changes, and I know how hard you're working. So, today, we're going to talk about the elephant in the room, right? All the public comment. I want to mention that. But first and foremost, I want to say how hard you're working. And looking at our vacancies and looking at the needs of our students, one of the things that I always say that was most surprising for me as a lifelong educator and a business owner, when I started going to schools, the number of students with high needs and with the access points. Every time you go to a school, it's like, wow, there's a large number of that, and there is a disparity. We are having a difficult time filling those positions. So I guess one of my questions is, what are we doing about the vacancies? What does it look like, and what does that support look like?
Sure. Thank you so much. So as far as the vacancies are concerned, we've been working very closely with Human Resources. We've actually allocated a position to the HR department from the ESE department to really help with recruiting and assigning teachers and paras to our classrooms. So I do have some good news to report. Since July 1, there's been 88 new ESE or teachers or rehires coming to us this year, 91 paras, 3 interpreters, which are very difficult to find, 5 SLP assistants, 1 audiologist, 15 speech and language pathologists, 2 VI teachers, which are like finding a diamond in the rough. They're very difficult to find, and 4 DHH teachers, also very difficult to fill. And in the past, we've had to use contracted services for those VI and DHH, so we are very hopeful that we will not have to do that this year for those positions. For our vacancies, we're actually looking not as bad this year. We have approximately 145 teacher vacancies, but when you look at all the schools, it's not like we have them all in one, school. They're kind of spread out. So the majority of our schools are looking pretty good as far as having ESE teachers. We do have a few schools that have multiple vacancies that we consider critical, and we're working with HR to get those filled first as possible, and then working with, if we have to have substitutes, making sure that we have training for them, and that we have someone certified working with them. And we have approximately, it looks like about 58 para vacancies, which is really very good for us. So in the past, last year we had a lot more vacancies. When we were sitting in a good position where we thought we had the majority of our vacancies filled, we still ran about 70 vacancies in ESE, even on a good year. So we are, and then in addition to that, we've really made a list, and we've been meeting with the ESE supervisors in the region to work with their principals on how can we cover these vacancies. And so some of the things that we've been looking at is using duly certified teachers. So teachers who are certified in the content but are also certified in ESE. A lot of our surrounding counties, Pasco does a lot of this, especially in middle and high school, making sure that teachers are duly certified so that they can serve the IEP and the content. So we're looking at all of those teachers that may be willing to help there. Looking at the vacancies and T-payrolling it out, so those teachers who want to work during their planning period to cover some of those. And then, of course, substitutes. We've even looked outside the box of maybe running some virtual groups from teachers in other schools that might be willing to help provide those SDI services during their planning, working with our coaches that may be ESE certified to pick up groups, using virtual school. We've really kind of thought outside the box to make sure that we are providing services to all of our students, even where there are vacancies.
And I thank you for all of that. And this is one question, if you don't know the answer, because I tried to ask you questions ahead of time, but as I'm sitting here, I was thinking, I'm not saying I need to contract ESE, but if I'm going to have a substitute or I'm going to have a certified teacher, what did it look like? How many ESE teachers did we receive from that contract last year? Because I know when I was at Caminiti, there were a couple, and those were critical areas where, I think it would have been very difficult to fill those positions if we didn't have a contract. So I guess my concern is it going to be contracted, or if I'm going to have a contract, or if I'm going to have a substitute? I don't know how every board member feels personally, but I don't want to use contracts, but I would rather have the best teacher in front of an ESE student, even if I had to contract for a year or whatever until we get that. What was that? How many teachers did we get from that contract last year?
So I do have that number.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry to ask you.
I can definitely send it to
But it's probably, is it close to 100?
It was probably closer to 50.
Okay, so it was closer to 50.
So we used about almost 150 of them last year, and we retained maybe close to 50. But I can give you the exact number because I do have that from the agencies. Because we did really encourage principals that if they were happy with these employees, to try to get them to come on board with us. And so we did, and that includes paras too, right? Teachers and paras. We have partnered with Kelly Services. We've been meeting with them with HR to really find certified ESE teachers to come and work with our students. And so we are using them. We do have the ability to use contracted services through that piggyback agreement, but I believe it will be a last resort.
Okay. And one last thing, I know you've done remarkable work as far as training and parent outreach, and we've talked a lot about this, especially I think sometimes in the Hispanic community, we've talked about this, where maybe ESE in a foreign country might look different than here, because I think maybe it's a negative label. Like someone spoke here when someone, I think today, someone said in their country, when you're labeled ESE, then maybe you don't have a lot of opportunities. Here, you have ESE, you can be anyone. You can be a president, you can be governor, you can be anything you want to be. So I guess my question is, with this change with this ABA, I was not aware of that paperwork change. So I'm just curious, like, what's happening there? What's going on? I saw many parents that weren't happy today, and providers. Where are we with that? What's going on with that? I didn't plan on asking the question, but I also didn't expect the people here today.
No, and I appreciate you asking so that we can have that discussion. So as far as the private instructional personnel, the statute says that public schools must allow the private and instructional personnel to come in and collaborate, observe, and provide service in the school. But it also says that the principal and the public school personnel, which is like the teacher, have the final decision on the when and where. Now, there's also some other things that come with this. So it sounds simple, right? Just let these people come and help the students. These services are provided for parents privately based on their insurance that are above and beyond the IEP. If a student needs something at the public school, we're required to provide it through the IEP. So this is in addition to that, above and beyond. So these private instructional personnel, just like any other contractor who may be coming into our schools, we have requirements for them, right? You can't just allow anyone to come in. The statute says that these people have to be certified and licensed, and we have to verify that. So one of the reasons for the changes was the principals were having to verify that all these private instructional personnel were certified and licensed, and there's like a website you have to go to. It's complicated. So what we did is we kind of wanted to take that off of the principal's plate, and we would have one designated person to make sure when the parent applies for their private person to come, that we would handle that verification process on behalf of the principal. And then once that was verified, then the principal would have the collaboration meeting with the private instructional personnel and the parent to outline what that person is coming to do, and then when and where will that occur. So that's one of the reasons we had to make some of the changes. Also, the Florida Department of Education, when we met with the bureau chief, all of the districts met with her recently and had concerns about how we were implementing this. So there was a work group established by the Florida Department of Ed that many counties and districts participated in so that we could come up with a more alike than different procedure. And when they're talking about the liability, we have to, just like any other contractor coming in, they have to have insurance and all of those things. So we didn't have that written in our prior policy, but we added it because it's necessary.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Member Combs. Member Hahn?
Thank you, Member Perez. So I do